how can you define psychological time from chronological time for the friends who might have just joined the universe of J. Krishnamurti, and the terminologies might just go like bonkers over their head? So
Yeah, well, this is something I'll let Natale answer this first, but this is something Natale and we have met many times
yes,
together, just the
please.
two of us, and we have talked over this issue of time and the differentiation between what we call psychological time and chronological time,
Mm.
which is at first seems like a intellectual maybe or difficult conceptual idea, and it's really not that complicated. So I'll let Natale answer first.
Basically, which mental health doesn't know anything about it. The average person, to me, was a big insight when I first heard it and understood what it meant. What happens is that our memory, our thinking process can only function in time, which is just a movement of in nature, this physical time. We know that the planet turns. So right now it's daytime here and it could be night somewhere else. So for me, but it's not actually, the time is a man-made convention just to measure.
Time
So
is relative, right? So
how long does it take for the moon to go around the sun and all that? But then what happens is we fuse that type of time psychologically. If you feel you're not a good person, you think that in time you could be better person. I know it's a common assumption. If I work on myself, I will be a good or get better. And that's what KO in dialogue we question it. It's an assumption that it's incoherent. It doesn't work because psychological is only where life is, the living, we said. Thought, yes. See, that thought can move in the past or in the future, but it's actually not going anywhere. It's an imaginary in the mind. So that's what we call psychological time. You can imagine when you were 3 years old or 7 years old, and you think you call out the past, but where is it? It's only a memory in the mind. So it actually never existed because you never lived there. At that point, when you were 3, you were living, but that was in the now. The future, same thing. The mind projects it from another idea of future, which is again a thought. So that type of time does not exist. It's a mind created illusion. And when we psychologically want to use that, it's illusion because let's say you can't breathe tomorrow. You can't, the living, you can't love tomorrow. You can't, whatever action a real genuine, it happens only in the now. So that's
exactly.
what psychological time isn't the idea that I can do it some other time, which is escaping doing it now.
It
So
is actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
so to the point, I think we can just see possibly that time, psychological time, is another aspect of knowledge.
Yes, another.
It's just another attribute given to thought because we think there's a past, we think there's a present, and we think there's a future, but none of those things actually exist other than as a thought,
So
which is knowledge. So it's again how this encroachment of knowledge has literally taken over our brains and therefore taken over our lives because we don't disseminate or discern between the fact that there's a yesterday, today, and tomorrow,
Mhm.
and the fact that that's just an illusion that may be useful in terms of planning,
no planning, which is
or preparing that. But what happens is we don't see how this encroachment of knowledge, which is time, which is thought, which is so many other things which we could get into, but just to start with those things, has encroached upon us. And this has been reflected by some people who have seen it, artists, poets. You mentioned a poet who wrote about this. And dialogue is a sort of pollination, if you will. You may not have some sort of aha or awakening if you come to dialogue. People can come to dialogue for years and that may never happen. But make no mistake about it, your exposure to dialogue does plant seeds. Nobody can make those seeds germinate. Nobody can make those seeds sprout. You can't even do it. So, but just know that they're there, and maybe the potential of those seeds expressing themselves can occur at some point. Not in the future. It'll always be in the now. But the only other point I wanted to add to this was that sometimes our culture and our entertainment reflects this. And Natale and Paradise know that I still am, even though they're not around, a big fan of Pink Floyd. In 1975, they had a song called Welcome to the Machine. And it's a kind of haunting song that points to this very notion
Wow.
that we have become highly mechanized. And one of the
Yeah, it was quite
lines,
prophetic, actually. Very
oh
prophetic.
yes, yes. One of the lines from Welcome to the Machine, which is just listen to it and listen to the lyrics and see how it impacts you. What did you dream? It's all right. We told you what to dream. So that's a kind of a eerily spooky prophetic thing in terms of, do we really have any thoughts or ideas of our own, or has it all been implanted like a program in our brain, like a machine?
One last insight I want to share, because
Yes.
if you really, I was tricked into, and it's easily believed. Even John just said it's always now, not in the future. When we think of now as being a moment in time, as if now is a moment, has nothing to do with the moment, because the now is a continuous, constant, timeless. So that you can't think about that. So the now is always. Always. That's always, even it's a term of in time, but it's probably behind that. You're always in the now. So there's
Always.
never a future.
Which never stops, which never has a static moment. Like the camera captures a frame of time, but it's not really a good representation because it's extracting that moment. And that's what thought does. Thought takes a moment from perception and extracts it, and then we try to bring that image to life.
So
like a movie.
when when I used to read when I was young, the Kay used to say, there is no time in this. It's either you do it now or you'll never do it. I will go crazy. How can I just do it? Because I was using the moment, this moment as now. But the now is always available forever, if you want to say. So the potentiality of waking up is always here.
Yeah, right. So as John very rightly said in the community group also that, I mean, Happy New Year is the moment you awaken to the ever new, ever changing, right, reality that is. So if time is an illusion, what are we all waiting for? I mean, what are we waiting for?
Well, waiting is part of the obscurity, part of the inability to see the freshness and newness, because now you're waiting, which is out of time. Waiting is in psychological time, and that becomes a block to seeing.
You see, the word waiting comes as if an event or something is going to happen. But as David Bohm pointed to it, there is this, it's not an event in time, because all of flux, he called it, the movement of life, is always happening now. It's not going anywhere, but it's kind of fresh in the sense that there is like the spring water. It's moving, it's not going anywhere, it's always fresh. It's coming from the source, coming out, coming back, coming out. So this is the vertical, they call it the real timeless now. And then there
I might not even use the word now, because that word now
it's
almost
it's
begs for definition. I would just say it's a movement, a constant movement, which is timeless.
And if you look at the word momentum and moment have something in common. It's a movement. When you say this moment, yes, it's
in flux.
It's in flux. That's
always.
something to understand.
Mm.